Hey everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about nerfs because Blizzard has just announced 3 new nerfs for the game which are coming on the 18th of October. So they've been announced today, but we do have to wait a few more days before they come into the game. I'll be talking about what I think, what the changes are, and also why I'm a little bit disappointed here. But first I'd like to just start by saying that I think nerfs are good. I think the game needs them because there's 4 months between expansions, and what always happens with Hearthstone, the new cards come out, everyone enjoys playing them, eventually we settle on the best decks, and then you have to spend sort of 2 months kind of just playing the same decks, playing the same meta. But nerfing cards often means that they'll shake up the meta game, so you're not always playing against the same decks, you're not always playing against the same cards, and often when you do nerf cards it means other decks can kind of come into the spotlight, and it shakes things up a bit and actually helps to break up the monotony of the game. Unfortunately, I'm not sure this is going to make too much change. I mean, they will make changes to the game, but I don't know how it's going to impact the decks that much. So let's talk about the first change. I mean, the first change is pretty huge, and that is Giggling Inventor. I am a little bit disappointed in this one, but anyway, so they're changing it from 5 mana all the way up to 7 mana now to play Giggling Inventor. So to be honest, Giggling Inventor is gonna go away, I think. There aren't many instances where you would play this for 7 mana in my opinion. I think in control decks potentially, but often it's too late. I think turn 7's too late to protect you from Odd Rogue, to protect you from all the other aggressive decks and Odd Paladin, etc. I think turn 7's probably just too late and not enough value. Now, I think the card, I didn't want the card to be nerfed because I like playing in control decks, but I kind of agree that they have done it. Just because when you look at the stats, I got these stats from HS Replay, but Giggling Inventor's in 30.8% of decks, so almost 31% of decks across all ranks will be playing Giggling Inventor. So that is a lot. The next most played card is about 20%. That's Saronite Chain Gang. So you can see that 10% difference is pretty large. And if you're going to be seeing this in 30% of decks, then potentially that just means that it needs to be nerfed. We always knew it was a strong card. And the fact that it's common, it kind of works in 2 ways. It kind of means that, well, everyone can play it, so maybe it doesn't need a nerf because it doesn't particularly favor certain classes. But on the other hand, because it is common, what this means is in future expansions, every single card that Blizzard designs from now on, they're going to have to think, oh, well, how does it work with Giggling Inventor? Will it make Giggling Inventor too overpowered? And by nerfing it now, it means that that will be less of a problem in the future. So it's a shame because I didn't think it was too much of a problem. I like that it slowed the games down, but I understand why they've done it. And looking at more stats, you know, the card can go in so many different decks. It can go into control decks, obviously, because it plays taunts and sticky minions that are difficult to get past. And that's where I don't mind it. But it can also be played in aggro decks. It can also be played in mid-range decks. And in Rogue, it's particularly oppressive. 2 main kind of Rogue decks at the moment are Odd Rogue, very aggressive. And in that deck, you can just play Giggling Inventor and protect your other minions behind it. So if you've got a Henchclan Thug on the board and a Giggling Inventor, it means that you can just keep hitting their face and protect it with these. So it kind of works the other way. Also, you know, Fungal Mancer. These are very sticky minions when you put them on the board. Then it gives you something to play your Fungal Mancer onto. So it's quite oppressive in Odd Rogue. But where I think I really dislike this card and where I'm happy that there's a change is in Quest Rogue, because Quest Rogue, when they've got Valera, they can play 2 of these in 1 turn at 5 mana. So, and if they've already completed their quest, which they will have done by that point, they're all 4/4s. And to me, that just wasn't fun. And then, of course, they can play it and then Shadow Step the Giggling Inventor and then play it twice again the next turn. So that is quite a good... leaving the game is quite good, but I think they could have done that just by nerfing Quest Rogue in a different way. I mean, it's already been nerfed twice already, but I would have liked to have seen Quest Rogue kind of changed. And when you look at Rogue only, it was in 65% of decks, all Rogue decks across all ranks. And when you look at Legend only, it's almost 80% of all Legend Rogue decks have Giggling Inventor in them. And, you know, it can be played in so many decks. I even saw Death Rattle Hunter starting to play them because you can cube one of your Annoyatrons, because then you get so many of these 1/2 taunts on the board and keep playing dead on your cube, etc., that eventually you can just beat your opponent down because they can't remove them all. It's also going to affect Mossy Horror. Mossy Horror, surprisingly, actually almost 20% of decks were playing Mossy Horror just to combat this Giggling Inventor. It will also affect the Blood Knight, but to a lesser extent. But removing Mossy Horror from the game, people won't be playing it so much anymore. Doesn't really change the meta because it's a tech card. I suppose what it might mean is that more token decks and kind of like Odd Paladin and Token Druid, they might actually benefit from losing Mossy Horror sort of disappearing from the game. Giggling Inventor goes, everyone stops playing Mossy Horror, but then potentially you can play more of these Odd Paladin decks too, because there isn't the Mossy Horror counter in the game. That might change, but I think Token Druid takes a bit of a hit by not having Giggling Inventor at 5 mana anymore. So anyway, I think this is going to change the amount that you'll see Giggling Inventor, but I don't know that it's going to affect the decks that will be strong in the game so much. I think Odd Rogue can still play it, and I also think Quest Rogue can still be played without Giggling Inventor. So next up, and this is actually a good change in my opinion, this is the Mana Wyrm, and it might be a bit surprising to a lot of people because Mana Wyrm is a classic card, but it's been around for so long that I think it's kind of good that we're getting a change here. And what they're doing is they're changing it from 1 mana to 2 mana, and that is a pretty big nerf, to be honest. A card that costs 1 mana suddenly becoming 2 really affects the kind of power level of that significantly. And the reason I think it needs to be changed is because sometimes in Tempo Mage, for example, if you get Mana Wyrm on turn 1, you're going to be in a really, really strong point in the game. And you don't really want Hearthstone to be defined by the mulligan stage, because it's just not a very fun and interactive way to play the game. So if your opponent plays Mana Wyrm coin, Mana Wyrm, you're pretty much already dead, depending on what kind of removals you got. But even if you do have removal, a lot of classes can't deal with it until turn 4 or 5. So you're just in a bad spot. And when you look at the stats, Mana Wyrm is played in almost 67% of mage decks, which is kind of okay because it is a class-only card and it kind of defines the class. But when you look at some of the win rates, it then becomes more problematic, because if you play it on turn 1, which is played 35% of the time, you get a 60% win rate. So that means if you get this in your opening hand, you have a 60% win rate, which kind of isn't that great. Again, it's this whole mulligan stage defining the whole game, and not really a fun way to play Hearthstone. And when you specifically play it against Priest, the Priest class, this includes all Priest decks, if you play it on turn 1, you have a 75% chance of winning. So that just, you know, to me, that's something that needs to be changed. And it's kind of come in and out of the game depending on what cards can go alongside it, and it's kind of powerful now. But the reason why I think it needs to be changed is for future expansions. I mean, I wouldn't mind if it stayed at 1 mana as the game is right now, but Blizzard has to think about Mana Wyrm every single time they bring out a new mage card. They have to just think about how will Mana Wyrm interact with this, and it kind of, I think it would limit a lot of fun cards that we could see, fun low-cost spells potentially, just can't be played because if you combine them with Mana Wyrm, it's just too powerful. So I don't mind this change. I know a lot of mage players will be disappointed, which is understandable, but I think it's for the good of the game. I think this is quite a good change. Now, the final change that they have proposed just affects Wild. I don't actually play Wild, so this doesn't impact me myself, but I think it's quite a good change because I have heard a lot of people complaining about Druid in Wild, and where it potentially doesn't specifically target the cards that people wanted to be changed in Druid, it does affect Aviana, and it's changing from 9 mana to 10 mana. And what Aviana does is it makes your minions cost 1. And the reason why that's a problem, this is a wild only card, but the reason why it's a problem in wild is because you can play this on turn 9 and then all your minions cost 1. You can play Kuhn the Forgotten King for 1 mana. That refreshes your mana crystals, and then you've got 10 mana to spend on other minions that all cost 1 as well. So it's a bit oppressive, and by changing it to 10 mana, the combo can still be done if you've got the coin in your hand or if you've got Innovate, but it makes it harder to do. So I quite like that they're changing Wild, because Wild should be a fun place where you can test all these crazy cards, but the minute one deck becomes just too powerful, I think they do need to look at it, because otherwise there's no point going there, because you're just only playing one deck. So I think this is okay. Not one that's going to impact me specifically. I don't know if there's any wild players. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. I know a lot of people are concerned about Juicy Psych Melon in wild, for example. So maybe they should have looked at something else. So that's it. That's all of the changes. And to be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed because I don't see too many deck changes coming in based on these changes. I don't think Odd Rogue is going to be impacted by losing Giggling Inventor. I think Quest Rogue is going to be slightly worse by not having Giggling Inventor. Maybe I'm underestimating that, but I still think that Quest Rogue can be played. They're still going to be oppressive with the 1 mana life steals and the 1 mana charge 4/4s. It's just not a fun deck to play against, which is why I'm disappointed that they didn't kind of nerf that one out of the game. Also, you know, Token Druid's going to be losing out on the Giggling Inventor, but that's not much of an issue. I think they can get around that, just play a Chain Gang instead, and you still get a good effect. Mana Wyrm, I think that's probably the biggest impact on Tempo Mage. I think that really does hurt. Is it an integral part of Tempo Mage? I think it is. So maybe we'll see a lot less Tempo Mage. And then we look at the elephant in the room, which is Druid. Now, a lot of people have been talking about, in Constructed, I mean, but also Wild, just how oppressive Druid is. And I think you can play against Druid. I don't think it's too crazy, but it's just generally a very strong class. So there are so many cards that fit into so many different types of Druid decks. You just change 1 or 2 cards and it's a new archetype like Malagos or Togwaggle, or Big Druid, for example, Taunt Druid. They all contain branching paths. They all contain Malfurion. They almost all contain Ultimate Infestation, and it's often you don't know what Druid you're playing against until like turn 10, because they could be anything. So I really wish they would have nerfed some Druid cards. Ultimate Infestation is rotating out at the start of next year, the first expansion that comes out next year, but that's quite a long time away. And I think Ultimate Infestation is quite a huge problem for the game at the moment, because there are cards in Druid that will never go away in the classic set. So Wild Growth and Nourish. And Wild Growth and Nourish are played pretty much in every Druid deck, and the reason is because Druid has such a strong play on turn 10 playing their Ultimate Infestation. If you ramp and then play an early Ultimate Infestation, suddenly you've got a full hand, full mana, and you've got a presence on the board. So that's why, I mean, if that goes, then Wild Growth and Nourish suddenly become a lot less powerful. Obviously, it's still a good part of the Druid class. I actually quite like that Druid has a ramp kind of identity. But when they can ramp into such a strong card as that, which refills their hand, the cards just become overly powerful. I mean, Wild Growth and Nourish have been in the game since the very start, and it's not often that they've become too powerful. Without Ultimate Infestation, I think that would be much better. I think that would have been a nice nerf. But as it is, Druid is just going to be the same on ladder. I don't think anyone's going to stop playing Token Druid, and actually Token Druid I think was the least frustrating deck. I actually didn't mind playing against that one. Like Malagos Druid is still going to be the same. So it's a little bit disappointing that's going to continue. I'm also disappointed that they potentially didn't look at buffing cards. Now I don't know if they've ever buffed any cards in Hearthstone, but we're kind of at the stage where we want to play some new decks. We want to see some new decks on ladder. I don't think these changes are going to do that. It would have been nice if potentially they'd looked at some really underplayed cards. So some of the quests, for example, what about the Paladin quest or the Shaman quest? Also the Hunter quest. It would have been nice to have seen those kind of been buffed potentially, and then see some of those play, because they're being rotated out. Like I said at the start of 2019, those quests are being rotated out as well. So it'd be quite nice if they were slightly stronger to play for the next kind of 6 months. I don't know whether I'd like it if they made it too oppressive on that side, but I think that would have been something that they really could have done at this stage, because there's been a lot of talk about Hearthstone getting stale, and I think this won't do much to change it. I really don't. Giggling Inventor hasn't been around very long, so it's just going to go away now, and the game's going to go back to normal. So overall, I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm glad that they're doing the changes, because they had said previously that they're not going to do any. I'm glad they are, but to be honest, the only one which I feel that is kind of a good change from a design standpoint is the Mana Wyrm. It's a shame. From a control player's point of view, I think it's a shame that we're going to be losing Giggling Inventor. I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that, so maybe they've made the right choice there. But ultimately, this is pretty disappointing to me. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. I don't know, do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Are there any cards that you'd like to see nerfed that I hadn't mentioned? And also any buff cards. I think really we do need to see some more buffs. But anyway, I'm still going to play the game. I still enjoy the game. But I would have liked to have seen some more of a shake-up. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.